Hello, Mind Body Masters, and welcome to episode number 22. Now, today's episode is titled, What is Your Stress Threshold? Now, this is a concept that I'm going to be introducing to you today, and it's going to make a lot of sense. It's going to be very familiar. To you, and I'm sure that you're going to resonate with this. Now, I'm going to be talking all about how stress affects your body, and this stress threshold, which is kind of hard to say, is so important to understanding yourself, understanding how stress impacts your physiology, your body, your symptoms, and also how stress impacts your mental state. So if you want to know more about yourself, you want to know more about how stress is impacting you, we'll be sure to stay tuned. Hi, I'm Jay Curry. As a former chiropractor, I realised that people's physical symptoms started in their mind and not in their body, which is why I now teach people how to heal themselves from the inside out. Now, you don't need to be a monk or a mystic to heal yourself. You just need to learn how to master your mind-body connection. And this podcast is going to show you how. You're going to learn how to understand the hidden meaning of your symptoms, resolve the old emotional baggage that's kept you stuck, and gain practical tools to reduce the stress in your life. This is going to give you the ability to heal not only physically, but also spiritually. And this comes with a dangerous level of freedom. So let's help you become a mind-body master. Okay, so welcome back. Now, as I alluded to in the intro there, we're going to be talking all about how stress affects your body and also your mind. And on that, we're going to be talking about how every single one of us has a stress threshold, and understanding your very own stress threshold is critical to learning how to heal. It's critical to overcoming a lot of the mental patterns that we get into, and just learning how to become more calm, more present, and more at peace. So to explain this concept, I first need to explain a little bit about stress. Now, we can have good stress, and we can also have stress that becomes overwhelming. So a good stress, for example, is exercise. We're all familiar with this concept that exercise is a stress that's good for you. And the reason it's good for you is because stress, when in response to stress, your body needs to adapt. Your body needs to create physiological changes to meet the demands of that stress. And some stresses can actually be really good because it promotes growth. It promotes us to overcome obstacles. So exercise is a really good one, a good example to explain the physical changes that go on. But you can also have a good stress when it comes to mental changes as well. So you might be put under enough stress in the workplace, in your job, in your career, and that stress is actually the thing that causes you to pop to that next level. It causes you to grow. It causes you to become a better version of yourself, learn more, do more. So there is some good stress. But what we're going to be talking about today is how some stress can actually be quite detrimental. Now, in nature, when we go through something stressful, now, by the way, stress is simply defined as the feeling of being overwhelmed or unable to cope with some kind of mental or emotional pressure. So the key part of that sentence or that definition is unable to cope or overwhelming. So good stress essentially is at a point which doesn't overwhelm you. It's at a point which it's not too much to cope with. And when we have that good stress, that's when we grow both physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. But what happens when stress gets too much? Well, often what happens is that stress, our brain will take a snapshot of that stressful event and will remember everything about that. And then we will unconsciously relive it again and again and again. Now, I'm going to be talking more about how we relive stressful events, why we relive stressful events, and how to start breaking that cycle in a future episode. But today, I'm going to start talking about how stress accumulates over time and how once we get to a certain point, that eventually becomes too much. So to give you this example, I'm going to use the analogy of rocks in your backpack. And you might have heard this one before, but this is such a beautiful analogy which explains how this concept works. So I want you to think of everyone in their life has a backpack, and we all have the ability to carry a certain weight in that backpack. Now, when we start out in life, provided that we had a nice birth and we had a good childhood and all the rest of it, our backpack is usually quite light. But every time we go through a stressful event that feels a bit too much at the time, if we don't have the tools to be able to overcome that or to release that or to move through that stress in the present moment, what we'll have to often do is we'll suppress that and push it down. So This can be really little things. It doesn't have to be a massive distressing event. But for example, like if you're a little kid and you, I don't know, spill a glass of milk on the TV remote and your parents scream and yell for a second, that could be a simple enough fact that causes you to feel overwhelmed or unable to cope with that pressure. And what we unconsciously do is when things can feel too much, is we can suppress that emotion down. We can suppress that feeling down so that we can carry on with life. Now, what ends up happening is every time we do that, it's like picking up a rock and placing it in your backpack. And sure, when you push that down, when you push that stressful situation, that stressful event down, and you place it in your backpack, it's not too heavy. You can carry it quite easily. And so then you carry on through life. But then what happens is over the course of years, months, decades, it's different for every single person. The more stressful events that we experience that are too much or too overwhelming, it's like, and we don't know how to deal with them in the present moment, it's like putting another rock in that backpack. And so eventually you go through life continually putting these rocks in your backpack, all these stressful events, stressful situations that you just weren't able to handle at the time. It's just like putting another rock in that backpack. And then what happens is eventually that really light, easy to carry backpack becomes really heavy and it starts to weigh people down. Now, this is something that I saw so much when I was working as a chiropractor is I would see people coming into my office after they've crossed this stress threshold. So what I'm talking about here is eventually when that bag metaphorically becomes too much to carry, your body goes over this stress threshold and enters an area where we now start to experience some changes physiologically. We now start to experience some changes mentally as well. So once you cross that stress threshold, all of a sudden your body can't cope with all of the old stuff that you've been carrying around. So you can't, and then what happens is people will start to all of a sudden experience symptoms really unexpectedly, weird symptoms showing up. Now, this was the case for me, is I was healthy, I was fit as a fiddle for a lot of my childhood, and then all of a sudden I started to get all of these unexplained injuries and unexplained pains and problems. And I put that down to the fact that I'd crossed my stress threshold. Now, not only do you start to get more symptoms physiologically, but this is also when your mental state starts to change. So this is when we start to enter what's known as the fight or flight nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system. It's also been called the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn nervous system, which again, I'm going to touch on in another episode in the future when I'm continuing this talk about stress. So we enter that nervous system, and this is where people now start to live with a low grade of stress. And this stress can be a near constant thing. And there's many types, right? So some people can experience this low grade stress as a feeling of anxiety or worry or impending doom. And these people often be out there planning and thinking about everything and needing to have everything in the right places and needing to understand what the future holds. So for a lot of people, this low grade stress, once they've crossed that stress threshold, starts to manifest as this fear or anxiety or worry. For other people, that when you cross that same stress threshold, it might start to manifest as feelings of not enough, or I'm not good enough, or I'm worthless, or who am I? And we have these really self-deprecating, self-doubt starts to creep in. And so what ends up happening then is we start to carry these feelings with us. We might start feeling really remorseful, or maybe you cross that stress threshold and you start to feel really angry. You start to feel really peeved at the world, upset, frustrated. Everybody is different. But one thing I know is that when you cross that stress threshold, I'm getting tongue-tied saying stress threshold. Once you cross that barrier, I'm going to call it a barrier. It's much easier for my mouth to comprehend. But once you cross that barrier, all of a sudden you now start carrying and you now start to feel the weight of that backpack mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And this is where so many people are in life, is they're experiencing these moods, these states, these feelings of inadequacy, of not feeling good enough, of not feeling worthy, of feeling like they've failed, of feeling guilty about things that they've done. And I put this down to the accumulation of these rocks in your backpack, which we call stress imprints. So over the course of your life, you tend to accumulate these stress imprints. And one of the things that I've heard with a lot of my clients that I've worked with is, and this is a really common story, and you can probably relate to it as well, is once you cross over that stress threshold, it's almost like night and day. A lot of people can almost pinpoint. They're like, I was a really healthy human being. I was really healthy, fit, and happy. And then all of a sudden, I started to take a turn. I started to feel more stressed. I started to get more symptoms. I started to be more angry. I started to be more reactive with my kids. I started to have a temper at work. Before that, I was pretty easygoing. I was pretty happy. And I didn't have any symptoms. And so people will often talk about what their life was like before and what their life was like after they started to cross this barrier. And the reason being is because when you're on that other side of the stress threshold, once your body's now in this almost constant state of fight or flight, this nervous system, it's this low grade stress, and can often be high grade as well. But this is going to start to create not only those physical changes, all those unexplained symptoms, all those unexplained pains, that weird digestive issue that crops up, that weird skin condition that comes out of nowhere, feeling adrenally fatigued, feeling exhausted. This is where all that comes from. And the other side of that is people that are constantly feeling flat, feeling tired, and feeling unmotivated. When your body's in this near constant state of stress, when your body is operating in what we call the sympathetic nervous system, when you're in that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, it uses up a lot of energy. And you're burning a lot of energy, and your body doesn't actually get a chance to heal. Your body actually doesn't get a chance to rest and repair. And so what ends up happening is people who feel quite tired, they're exhausted, they're flat, they're unmotivated, they don't have the energy. Energy is one of the biggest things that we work with. And I hear from our clients is people are saying, yeah, I've got these symptoms, X, Y, Z, but I haven't got the energy that I used to. I haven't got that vitality that I used to. And think about it. How could you? If you had to carry a backpack with 100 kilos of rocks in it, how would your energy be? And of course it makes sense when I'm talking about something literal, when I'm talking about a real backpack, and you can imagine yourself carrying that backpack up a hill. Of course it's heavy. But people discredit the weight that we go through mentally, emotionally, and spiritually based on these stressful events that we've experienced in our life, these stressful events that we've accumulated. Now, one of the things on that is a lot of people have told me, a lot of people have said to me, hey Jake, I haven't been through massive trauma, I haven't been through massive stresses in my life, life's been pretty good. Why is it now that I'm experiencing these symptoms? Why is it now that I'm feeling stressed, anxious, frustrated, not enough? Why is it now all starting to come to the surface? And the reason being is you don't need to have gone through these massive traumas in order to cross that threshold. It can be the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. That old saying, it's like if you put a straw on a camel's back, it can carry that load easily. But if you put 10 million straws on that camel's back, eventually the weight of that straw is going to be too much. And this is what we see. And this is why a lot of people will ignore how stress is affecting their body. It's why a lot of people will ignore, well, I haven't been through trauma, I haven't been through death, I haven't gone through war. And what I'm here to say is you don't have to. If you've got symptoms, if you're experiencing some kind of mental pressure, burnout, fatigue, exhaustion, feeling really triggered and reactive quite easily, you don't have to have gone through these massive events. And for most people, it's actually the slow accumulation over time of putting these rocks in the backpack. Every rock is some kind of stressful event, usually quite small, that at the time we didn't have the tools to process or move through. So what do? We put it in our backpack and we carry on in our way. And this backpack eventually gets very, very heavy. Now, conversely, this can happen in just one moment. Now, for a lot of people that I've experienced and worked with, they've experienced situations that were so distressing, so unexpected, and so intense that in one moment they put a big boulder in their backpack, and all of a sudden they cross that same barrier, that same stress threshold, and now they've entered the zone of having symptoms. Now they've entered the zone of feeling this constant mental pressure, this constant feeling of exhaustion. And that can occur from just one event as well. But for the majority of people, it's usually that slow accumulation. It's usually that build up over time. But for a lot of people as well, it just depends on what you've been through in your life. For a lot of people, it can happen in just one moment. It can happen in 2 or 3 moments. And that can be enough to tip you over the edge. Now, this is where things get interesting. And this is where things get, they just get interesting. And this is where a lot of people get stuck. So all of a sudden, you've got people, you might relate to this yourself, right? All of a sudden, you've started to experience weird symptoms showing up, and you've started to experience that mental pressure. You're starting to feel quite anxious. You're starting to feel stressed out. You're feeling like you're not good enough. You're scared of criticism. You're scared of judgment. All of these things, and it's like it showed up out of the blue. Well, it didn't. It accumulated over time. But the interesting thing is now what happens with most people, and this is where most people get stuck, is they'll start looking at various treatments and therapies and supplements to treat those symptoms. So to treat the physical pain, to treat the digestive issues, to treat the skin conditions. And these people are doing all these therapies and treatments, but then they're turning around and getting no results, and they're wondering why. Why am I not getting the results? Why am I still in pain? Why is my digestion still horrible, even though I've cut out every single bad food on the planet? I mean, what else can I cut out? So this is where a lot of people get trapped. And the reason that a lot of these therapies aren't necessarily working, and I'm not bagging them out by no means, like a lot of alternative therapies are all fantastic. But what ends up happening is if your symptoms are the result of the accumulation of stress over your life or 1 or 2 big stressful events, then no amount of treatment is going to fix that. It's basically like carrying around this massive backpack full of rocks and then wearing some really cushioning shoes with air bubbles all through them and springs on the bottom. You're wearing these shoes to cope with that added pressure of the bag. And that's only going to get you so far. And this is why treating the symptoms versus treating the cause is so important. And so many people out there, the reason that they're not getting the results that they want with their body, with their symptoms, with their health, with their healing, is because they're out there treating the symptoms. They're out there putting added padding on their socks. They're putting extra cushions on their shoes. They're putting springs under their heels to be able to cope with that heavy bag of rocks that they're carrying around. Whereas what I'm here today to tell you is that healing is the art of actually letting go. Healing is the art of going, okay, I'm carrying around this big, heavy backpack. How about I put it down? How about I start taking some of these rocks out? How about I just lighten the load? And this is what happens when you start to understand the impact that stress has had on your body and also your mind. Is once you can start to go back and unpack this backpack, take those rocks out, that's when your body can start to heal. That's when your mind can start to feel more peaceful, more calm, more present, more happy, right? And that's what we're all here for. That's what everyone wants. We want to feel the happiness, the excitement, the passion, the fun, the playfulness. But so many of us are over the stress threshold. Our backpacks are too heavy. And so we feel desperate, we feel anxious, we feel frustrated, we feel lonely, we feel pressured, we feel like we're not enough, not worthy. But what starts happening for you is when you truly acknowledge and when you truly get, and it takes some people a long time to get here, but when you truly get that the stressful events in your life that you've experienced are impacting your body and mind, well then instead of chasing some kind of new treatment or supplement or therapy, you can start taking those rocks out of your backpack. And this is what happened for me. For years and years and years, the reason I became a chiropractor was because I was burdened with pain. I had all these injuries under the sun. I broke my back when I was 16 in 3 places, and for years it plagued me. And that was why I wanted to become a chiropractor. I wanted to find the reason why I was in pain. And this led me on a journey to try all kinds of... I won an award at uni, right? This is kind of interesting. I won an award at uni, like one of those funny make-believe kind of awards at graduation. I won the award for most likely to try a fad diet. And the reason I was most likely to try a fad diet is because I was on the search. I was on the hunt for the missing piece. I was trying to find that magic pill. I was trying to find that magic therapy that was going to take my pain away. And I searched for years. I spent thousands of dollars on treatment and supplements and therapies and all kinds of stuff, which is why I'm here teaching this work, because I don't want you to have to go through that same pattern that I went through. But eventually enough became enough. I was sick of feeling stressed. I was sick of feeling worried. I was sick of feeling not enough. And I realized that I had some rocks in my backpack. I realized that even though I hadn't been through massive distressing events in my life, my backpack was heavy. And I could choose to keep trying to find solutions to find ways to cope with that heavy backpack, or I could start taking the rocks out. And that's when everything changed for me. That's when I started to shift from looking at the cause physically to looking at the cause of things mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. This is when I started to really unpack some of the events in my life and make peace with them and let them go. And this is what is possible for you, is when you actually make this transition, when you actually start to take those rocks out of your backpack, when you lighten that load mentally, emotionally, and physically, your body can start to heal. And this is wild. This is really, really wild. Is when you cross to the good side of the stress threshold, the top side, your body gets out of that sympathetic state. Your body gets out of that constant fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, which I'll talk about in another episode. And that allows your body to finally start to heal. But not only that, you start to feel calmer, you start to feel more at peace, you start to feel happier, joyful, more playful, all of those things that we're talking about. And the interesting thing is, in life, we can't stop stressful events from happening. We can't, right? It's the nature of being a human, is things are going to happen to you, things are going to happen to me, things are going to happen to that we don't want to happen. But what happens when you have a backpack that is full to the brim of rocks from all the other accumulated stress in your life that you haven't dealt with, and then something comes along and you have to put another rock in that backpack? It can really send you over the edge. And all of a sudden you become far less able to deal with stressful events in your life. Little stressful events all of a sudden now start to trigger you even more. Now you become even more reactive to stressful events. These events that otherwise wouldn't bother you, they're now getting such a reaction out of you. They're now making you feel so distressed, so frustrated, so sad, so hurt. And all because your body doesn't have, your backpack is full. It hasn't got any more room to cope. Whereas as you start taking those rocks out and you start to feel healthy, you start to feel happier, your body's starting to heal, you're like, this is great. Like I said, you can't stop stress from happening. You can't stop unexpected events from occurring. But what happens when you've taken enough of these rocks out and you're starting to feel calmer, more peaceful, more present? When something does come along and you have to put a rock in your backpack, you're far more likely to be able to handle it. You're far more likely to be able to cope with it. Right? So this is probably one of the most important episodes I think I've ever done. And I think it will probably be a very important episode for you. And I'm sure there's people in your life that you know are going to resonate with this, and they need to hear this message. So I want you to share this episode, because this is really the basis of healing. If you want to heal physically, and if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, well, then you need to start taking these rocks out of your backpack. And what I'm here today to tell you is that when you do, your body has this amazing capacity to heal. It's incredible. But it can't heal with all those rocks in your backpack. It can't heal with all that weight weighing you down. But once you take those rocks out of your backpack, you tap into your body's natural ability to heal. You tap into your body's natural ability to feel happy and joyful and peaceful and calm and present. But if you continue to stack rocks into your backpack, if you continue to ignore the impact that stress has on your life, well, you start to become more reactive, you become more stressed, and as a result, your symptoms are going to worsen. Your symptoms tend to get worse as you get more stressed. So this is the gravity of this episode. This is the importance of recognizing that. And like I said, when I was there, when I realized that my backpack was full, it wasn't an easy choice to start pulling them out. It's far easier to go, oh, I hope this supplement's going to help my back pain. But it does take a bit more effort. It does take a bit more courage, if you will, to start looking at the stressful events in your life and to start actually processing them, letting them go, facing up to them. But I guarantee that when you start doing that, the reward is far greater than the uncomfortableness in the moment. And this is what I want to leave you with, is understanding this can really change your life. It can completely change the trajectory of your life from when you're listening to this forward. But that's what happens. When you start taking those rocks out of your backpack, you tap into your body's natural ability to heal. The same way your body heals a cut. You don't have to think about it. It just starts happening. And this is the way healing should be. Healing should be easy. Healing should be effortless. And healing should be natural. And I'm here today to tell you that you can do that. I'm here today that is 100% possible for you. But the piece with that is, the caveat with that is you have to be willing to get uncomfortable. You have to be willing to face up to the old hurts, the old frustrations, the old shameful feelings that you've got carrying around in your backpack. And for some, that's not fun. It wasn't fun for me. Transformation, personal growth, spiritual growth, it's not easy. It's not fun, but the rewards are great. And so that's what you're playing for here today, ladies and gentlemen, is the reward of health, the reward of healing, the reward of feeling content and peaceful and calm, and the ability to better deal with stress in the future. So that's what you're playing for. Okay, so like I said, that is your stress threshold. And once you cross that stress, I still can't say it. Once you cross that stress threshold, that is why, and the reason why so many people all of a sudden start to get symptoms, all of a sudden start to get these weird health conditions, and all of a sudden start to feel the increased mental pressure, the increased frustrations, hurts, blaming yourself, guilt, all of these things, these heavy emotions. So, start looking at that. And if this episode resonated, like I said, please share it with someone that you care about, because I know that it's going to help a lot of people. And I know this message needs to be heard. So, guys, thank you so much. That's your stress threshold. Yes, I did it. I actually said it. Yes, well done. That's your stress threshold. And understanding it is really key to healing and to growth and to letting go. And letting go is actually the key. So, and I'm going to leave you with that is, what's more important than your health? All right, guys, I'll talk to you soon. Have a good day. Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode in full. And now I have a free gift for you. Now, if you'd like to understand more about how stress impacts not only your mind, but your body, well, you're in luck, because right now we have a free mini course titled Mastering Your Mind, which is going to teach you all about how stress impacts your body and how you can start reversing the effects and start living not only a pain-free, healthy life, but also start feeling more calm, more present, and joyful. So if you want to get instant access to this, plus a free guided meditation, head on over to the website mindbodymasters.com/mastering-your-mind to get instant access to this one-of-a-kind program. Now, if you're anything like me, you're sick of seeing people suffer needlessly. And it's my mission in life to help people realize that they have the ability to heal themselves from the inside out by doing this inner work. So if you want to join me on this mission, there's 2 things that you can do to help out. The first thing is head on over to iTunes and give this show a 5-star review. By doing so, it helps us reach more people. And secondly, share this episode with someone that you know will resonate with this message. By you sharing this podcast with them, it might be the very thing that starts them on their healing journey. So thank you so much for listening to the show, and I'll see you again on the next episode.